Well, the former chief spokesperson for the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, Chris Gunness, joins us now from London. Chris, thank you very much indeed for your time. Let's kick off with a line from the Commissioner General of UNRWA, who I know that you have been working for and had connections with over the years. He has said this today: without UNRWA, it would be the last glimpse of hope for Palestinians, and that would have disappeared. Fortunately, though, he says there are no plans to leave. But how challenging are conditions for UNRWA right now?
For UNRWA and for others in Gaza, people are staring into the humanitarian abyss. And let's be clear, this is a humanitarian abyss of choice. This assault on Gaza, in part, was the result of the attack on the 7th of October by Hamas and Islamic Jihad, but the response of Israel has been overwhelmingly disproportionate and indiscriminate. And that's why so many senior UN officials are talking about accountability, but they're also talking about war crimes and genocide. And when you look at the statements that are made by Israeli leaders, Benjamin Netanyahu talking about the wholesale slaughter of the biblical injunction to slaughter women, children, babies, leave no one alive. When you look at the statements of an Israeli minister who talked about dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza, when you look at the statements of the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, who said that there would be a total blockade, no water, no fuel, no food. And it's interesting that the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, went to the Rafah crossing at the end of October, and he made the very good point that the denial of humanitarian aid is an international crime under the Rome Statute, which sets up the crimes that are permissible by the ICC. And of course, we know that Yoav Gallant is the person responsible for that particular international crime. We know that Mr. Netanyahu has talked with genocidal intent. So yes, there must be accountability. 5 countries have referred the situation in Gaza to the ICC. Lawyers from Turkey, indeed, and Malaysia, and other lawyers around the world are collecting evidence. So one thing we have to see moving forward is accountability. And I firmly believe that we will see accountability. The ICC is investigating, and we need to see arrest warrants. That's what happens. The people responsible for this need to be arrested and put on trial. And really only that is going to prevent, or that's one of the most important elements in preventing a recurrence of this. If Israeli political and military leaders know that they will be held to criminal account, then they, I hope in the future, would temper their actions, that we might be able to avoid this genocidal assault on Gaza.
And such investigations and trials will, of course, have to wait for another day until the current conflict has died down. Right now, we are on day 6 of an extended pause. International efforts are ongoing to try to extend that further. But in the meantime, the release of hostages and the release of Palestinian prisoners has gone ahead. And that would be an argument, surely, that many people would say for extending that, given that it has been fairly successful. The Red Cross have been involved, and they deserve a lot of credit for gaining the trust of both sides. Are you hopeful that there may be a further extension?
As far as I'm concerned, peace and an extension of this pause, ceasefire, call it whatever you will, is the only option. And let's also credit the Qataris for the work, the tireless work that they have been doing. Now, I'd like to say one important thing, and that is that on the 7th of October, an Israeli myth that had been really perpetuated since 1967 suddenly evaporated. And that myth was that Israel could manage the conflict, that Israel could build walls around the Palestinians, blockade the Palestinians, take more and more of their land in the West Bank, allow settler violence to take place with the complicity of the Israeli army, to arrest their children in the middle of the night under these administrative detention orders, according to which they don't even have to say what the crime is. So that myth has gone. You know, Israelis have been told that Santa Claus does not exist. They cannot manage their security. That has to be guaranteed, frankly, by the Palestinians. Unless you're going to bring the Palestinians in to a conversation about a secure Israel, that's not going to happen. And the great irony, the double irony, is that the nation that was established in order to protect people against genocide is now, according to its own leaders, committing a genocide. And the other irony, of course, is that that very genocide is going to make Israel less secure, not more secure. And on the Palestinian side, I think there has to be a realization that fundamentally it's only Israel that can allow them to have a functioning state. So I hope that moving forward, that this ceasefire can be built upon and that we can move to a meaningful dialogue about the underlying causes of this conflict. The dispossession of the Palestinians in 1948, the occupation of Palestinian lands that began in 1967, and the blockade of Gaza that began in 2006-7, because those are the underlying causes. And unless and until those are resolved by serious peacemaking attempts, which I pray will happen after this, then Israel is destined to live in a state of insecurity with a threat of more 7th of Octobers, and the Palestinians will linger in a state of isolation and barbarity, frankly, and we cannot allow that to happen. And let's be clear, I went on the anti-Semitism march last weekend, and as far as I'm concerned, never again applies to all people, including the Palestinians.
Well, it's a stark message, but also a positive one there at the end, Chris, and we do appreciate you putting that forward. Let's hope those talks taking place in Doha can go some way to achieving some of your vision. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Chris Gunness.
My pleasure.